Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Alachua County, Florida does hereby observe the month of February 2019 as Career and Technical Education Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion from the board to accept that resolution?
Mr. Chair, I motion that we accept it.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any discussion?
Yeah, Bill, can I ask you a question? They're talking about an alternative track for career tech now, up in Tallahassee this session, right?
Yes, they are.
Do you have any idea what, remember we tried it a few years ago, about 6 years ago?
Yeah.
It kind of fizzled out.
It's, yeah, I know that the governor has mentioned that several times and has proposed that we do that. I don't know any of the details at this point. I think it's in the initial stages, but yes, we're keenly aware that that is an initiative, and we'll be, of course, working with the state and whatever they move down to us for our department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Ms. Certain?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm
sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
It's been a while, I'm sorry.
Ms. Roy?
Thank you. Hi. Just wanted to say that I really liked your new catalog of the CTE courses and where they are offered. Each high school is represented as to what CTE courses are available at that high school. And I'm very proud of our district in being so forward-thinking in the way that we approach these courses. We are preparing students for high-tech jobs of the future.
Thank you,
and
Dr.
for flexibility.
And
Thank you, Ms. Roy. I agree. I think we have a robust and thriving career technical education programs across this district, and I think it's very impressive what the CTE team has built over the years. And yeah, we're very comfortable where we are, with the understanding that we're always looking to expand based on what our local workforce is calling for us to do.
and for those in the audience and watching from home, Mr. McElroy is our Director of Career and Technical Education and the principal at Lofton. And would you please introduce your faculty that's here with our wonderful color guard?
Absolutely. In the audience is the Director of our Fire and EMS Academy. That's Mark Smith. I can also introduce the kids very quickly.
That'd be great.
Starting from the far right, we've got Taylor Smith, Takara, what's your last name, Takara? Thank you, Takara White, Kieran Poole, Ian Gunter, Kenny Weston, Tyree Sanford, and Tim Smith. So
Thank you very
guys.
much.
And we recognize our students this evening.
Okay, any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is we would like to recognize our athletic director for Alachua County Public Schools, Mr. Charlie Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Superintendent. I'd like to put in brief perspective what we're recognizing tonight. Our school district has over 2,000 high school student athletes who compete on 120 different varsity teams in 16 different sports. It's exceedingly difficult, rare, and special to win a state championship, but it is the ultimate goal of every one of those varsity teams. To repeat this accomplishment is even more unusual. And to win 3 consecutive state championships, or any championship, is so distinctive that Michael Jordan coined the term three-peat to denote such a unique achievement. Well, this year the Buchholz girls swim team even surpassed this superlative by winning their 4th consecutive state championship. And they have the hardware to prove it. Being a history major, I had to do a little research, girls. I don't know if you realize this, but in almost 100 years of Florida high school competitive swimming, only 12 schools have ever won 4 or more consecutive swimming championships in 100 years. Currently, there are only 2, that exclusive private school, Bowles, and your very own Buchholz Bobcats, the only 2 in the state. So with that said, here is their principal, Mr. Jim Tenbig, to tell you more about these amazing athletes and who you are recognizing tonight. Mr. Tenbig?
Mr. Wise, School Board, it's a distinct honor for me to be here this evening to present these young ladies to you. Some of the most dedicated, driven, talented student athletes that we have in Alachua County. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Toy at this time to introduce the young ladies and tell you a little bit about them as we stand here before you.
Thank you, Mr. Tenbig. Without boring everybody with a whole lot of, details and stuff like that, what has been done is unprecedented. The girls have won 4 straight swimming state titles. They have 12 individual state titles and 10 relay state titles amongst them. There are 3 relay state records and 1 individual state record. They've had the last 2 Florida Dairy Farmers Miss Swimmings, including Miss Talia Bates, who is our current one. Currently, 3 of them, one is going to the University of Kentucky, the University of Virginia, and our own University of Florida. Our seniors are Miss Caitlin Brooks, Miss Katie Cronin, Miss Talia Bates, Miss Julia Rodriguez. Our juniors are Leah Reisker and Sarah Warm, and our sophomore is Georgia Bates. Not only are they good in the pool, the whole team, the group behind me, currently has a 3.74 combined GPA, and there are multiple members of the ladies behind me with over a 4.5 weighted GPA. Wow. So they are the true definition of a student athlete. And as the proud parent of a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, I can only hope that my daughter is half the people that are behind me. And that has nothing to do with the swimming. They're great kids. And we are happy to have them at Buchholz High School. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Katie Cronin. I am a senior, and I am fortunate enough to have been a part of 4 state champions. I actually went to Lawton Childs last week along with 4 other Buchholz students to talk to 4th and 5th graders about the importance of education and being motivated, setting big goals, and dreaming big. That group was composed of a football player going to UF, one going to UCLA, one to going to Air Force. We had a basketball and cheerleader, and then myself. And one thing that we all have in common is that we have dreamed big, and we have set our sights on things well beyond what people say are possible. My freshman year, when we came in, we just had the goal of getting a state championship. And that happened. And it was one of the most rewarding moments of my life. I cried. There was a lot of tears. Sophomore year, they said it wouldn't be as easy. And they were right. And I was still scared going into that state champion. And then we pulled it off. And it was incredible. Our 3rd year, we were fortunate enough to have even more girls go to states. All 3 of our relays set state records, and Talia Bates and another member set individual state records. This year, our 4th year, at districts, one of our relays was disqualified. That is 40 points that we were not able to accumulate at states. So imagine going into a meet with negative 40 points and still hoping to win. Many teams expected us to get 3rd. We knew that we wanted this. This was our legacy. There are 4 girls that we were hoping to get our 4th title. And we went into finals and we fought our hearts out. A lot of us stepped up in ways that we didn't even imagine doing. And it came down to the last relay. We had to win that relay. And winning that relay, I started crying. There's a picture of me hugging Caitlin Brooks and Georgia Bates, and I have tears because that was it. We had done it. I am lucky enough that I have a support system in the school. Mr. Tenbig and Mr. Toy came to all of our meets. They were in the stands at districts, they came to regionals, and they were there at states, and they were willing to pay for a charter bus to have students come. Unfortunately, students did not see how cool swimming was, and they didn't come, so I was a little mad at some people. But I think one thing about Gainesville is that Gainesville has a rich history of swimming. We have sent so many athletes on to do amazing things. And we've done all of this in the constraints of the Northeast pool, which I don't know if many of you have been to Northeast, and while it is a very nice complex, it is the only complex that all of the schools in Gainesville have to share. So every year our coaches have to meet and plan out our meets ahead of time. Who's gonna duel against who? What day is it gonna happen? Okay, well, Maco's still has to swim because Maco's is another team in Gainesville. Gator Swim Club needs space. Water polo, diving. Even I feel that luckily swimming does have some other locations. Diving gets the short end of the stick. Sarah Warm is out there freezing some days trying to dive, and we see her. So definitely something, and I do believe that a pool, whether it be on Buchholz campus or near Buchholz campus, would greatly benefit this community in ways. I'm also a swim instructor on the weekends, and I have found a passion for that, because you would be surprised how many kids do not know how to swim in the state of Florida. And drowning is completely preventable. That is a completely preventable death, yet every year kids drown. I had a girl last year, her name was Elizabeth, and she started swimming. She would claw me. I'd have scratch marks. By the end of the summer, she could swim all the way across the pool, freestyle and backstroke. She cried because she wanted to keep swimming. I think that swimming, and especially in Florida, is something that does not get as much publicity as it should. I think every child should know how to swim. And that is not, then that's, you can say that's a necessary life skill, like at school, like your academics. So in the near future, my sister goes to Lincoln, and they'll walk to Mickle Pool for swim lessons to learn how to swim. But you get to high school, and so many kids still do not know how to swim. So I hope one day that I can see a pool next to my Buchholz High School. Thank you so much for having us here tonight, and if it's okay with us, we'd all like to come shake your hands.
And all the hands come back for a picture. Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Touched my heart more than you know. Congratulations. Congratulations. My, I'm so proud of you all. Congratulations. Fourth? Oh my. Can we bring some seniors back?
And
Thank you so much.
normally,
I know you're
normally
proud.
Ms. Johnson takes a picture, but,
Someone's out there. I think Chief Hamilton can take one too. He's got a camera.
okay, Chief has got it. Y'all, come on up and join the picture. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Certainly, Ms. Surden?
Young ladies, before you all leave, I'm not sure if you're gonna leave now, but I just personally like to congratulate you all. I was a student athlete myself, I didn't swim, but I'm gonna tell you, I know how hard it is to play for one championship. And some of the best athletes in all of the United States of America hardly ever get to play for a championship, no matter what the sport. You all know that. I mean, you said over 2,000 athletes in Alachua County, and the number in our county is greater playing for a state championship at the high school level, but it is to get to that pinnacle of achievement for one, some may say it's lucky, for two, they may think, oh, it was a fluke. But when you start getting to 3 and 4 consecutive championships, that is a phenomenal achievement. And you all have something to be proud of and to hang your hat on. I mean, as a student athlete, I know the discipline, the hard work, the goals, setting goals, and just the focus to stay with it when other people are trying to get you to do other things. I know it took a lot to do that, and I really just want to congratulate you all and to know that you're an elite company, not just in Gainesville or Alachua County, but all over the United States of America. I mean, when GHS, the basketball team, won the state championship, my son was on a championship team. I never got to play for a championship as a high schooler. Now, doing City League, softball, and basketball, I played on a championship team, and I know what that felt like. But as my son was on a state championship team with Gainesville High, I'm gonna tell you, it was a phenomenal experience as a parent. So I can only imagine what it was like as a student, because my son, he was just speechless just to think that they just ran through the tournament as they did. But I really want to commend you all for keeping up your studies and for staying focused and for being an example for your peers and for those who come behind you. You've set the bar high. They have something to work towards in the future. Congratulations.
Okay, I'd like to recognize Superintendent Clark for a sales tax facilities update.
The minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have people keeping me on track here. Thank you, Dr. McNeely. Thank you, Superintendent Clark. Now, we have the minutes from February 5th, 2019 school board meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Surden, seconded by Ms. Roy. I feel bad that I didn't correct this earlier. I just have a one-word correction where it says, Chairman Hyatt noted that the same commissioner that made the inaccurate statements and was against the sales tax also voted against the Children's Trust. Well, I don't know who voted for what, because in America we don't know who votes, but I'd like to change the word voted for advocated. And how do we do that, Mr. Delaney? Do we need to, do we need to have a motion? We need a motion. Okay, to have a motion to accept my change.
I make a motion to accept the change.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any discussion? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The correction passes 5-0. Now, any further discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of the minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now I'm finally in the right place. Superintendent Clark, please give us an update on the sales tax and facilities.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Hyatt. As part of the effort to keep the board informed and the public up to date with where we are, on our webpage, there's a banner at the top in red that says half-cent sales tax initiative. And then once you click on that, there is a link where you can click on to get project updates. So what I'm sharing with you this evening, the bulk of that is already encompassed on the website, but at any time the public can look at that. Right now it's more in a narrative type form. We're still in negotiations to work on a more, pie chart, more of a graphic, kind of progress chart. But we do have narratives on all of the projects that are going on right now, so I want to just give you a brief update of those and where we are with several of those projects this evening. First, for Idlewild, Metcalf, and Howard Bishop, we have the ranking for the architectural firms that were approved by the board in December, and they're in the process of doing contract negotiations with the top-rated firm. And so the target completion date for those projects for Idlewild and Metcalf will be 2021, and then Bishop would be 2022. Also at Howard Bishop, we have a roof project, Building 30, that's been put out for bid, and expected to get that approval here in the next couple board meetings. That is a building that would not be demolished as part of the redesign at Bishop. That will be a building that stays, but that roof needed to be replaced. We also have Wiles Elementary School. They're currently working on design and construction plans for a new roof and HVAC system for one of the buildings. That's the cafeteria, multi-purpose, and music room, and that was approved by the board back in December. On elementary school I, the board approved the hiring of Shingle Schultz Architectural Firm as a design professional for elementary school I back on December 18th. This is the same firm that designed Meadowbrook Elementary, so they'll be reusing those plans as a cost savings, but modify that to 948 student stations. The target completion date there is August of 2021. The actual target to begin construction after we get through all the permitting and planning phase would be May of 2020. And then also we have design and development. We've been working at Gainesville High School on Building 27, which is the 9th grade center that includes 19 classrooms. That project will start the moment school is out, if not a little bit before, with a target completion date of August. So that's going to be a tall order to fill, but we are planning just in case it's not ready the first day of school. But that will be a major project that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system on that building. We've got roof replacement been put out for bid on a classroom building at Santa Fe High School, which again is one that's not going to be torn down as part of the process, but the roof needs to be replaced. And then Duval Early Learning Academy, we're in the design construction phase for new roofs on 3 buildings, building 2, 3, and 4, and a new HVAC system for one building, building 2. Those plans were approved by the board at the December 18th meeting. So we are rolling on multiple projects. You will see, in fact, some items on the agenda this evening as well that relate to those. But as we move through that process, this page will be updated to reflect that. So at any time, if anyone wants to know what's going on any of those projects, they just need to click on that link. And we're like I said, we're hoping to get the dashboard part of what we're calling it finished here in the very near future. We're working with DRMP to get that in place. So it'll be a more visual layout of what's going on instead of a narrative.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Certain.
Thank you, Superintendent Clark, for that update. What I'm asking about is, I seem to recall before I was sworn in that there was this promise or mention of us having, there being some ranking or criteria for how the projects would be worked on, and I haven't, did I miss that? Did that come to the board and I missed?
They're working on that right now. That's scheduled to completion by middle to end of March. They're working with DRMP to rank those by age, the impact of what the project is. We also have to look at the cash flow of how we do those projects at one time, and also the market for the, and I may not be explaining it correctly, subcontractors. We don't want to flood the market for one particular, let's say, a brick mason, because then that drives our costs up. And we also actually do coordinate, even informally, with UF and Santa Fe on their projects. So we're all not flooding the market at one time with what we're doing. So we're in the process of that right now. But especially with these roofs and AC projects, those are things that just, we're in the critical mass on those that they just can't wait anymore. But the initial ones that we were rolling out, the Idlewild, the Metcalf, the Bishop, those were, on the front end of everything we were talking about, even on the front end. So that will be, Mr. White, unless you've got a change on that date, middle March, right before spring break time? Okay.
And second question, are there any plans for having a workshop for the board for us to be able to discuss things with staff among our colleagues where we wouldn't be violating sunshine? Because I have lots of questions, and these updates are, while good, they're not fleshing out the questions that I may have.
Okay.
that
We can either do that, or if you would like to set up a meeting with the facilities team, if you've got specific questions, they'd be happy to do that too and sit down with all of them either way.
I'd actually like to have a workshop because I think people in the public may want to come. It'd be
Just fine.
something that's that would be advertised and that folks that could come. Because I'm not the only person I think that would have questions, and that would be good to not just have something where just one board member is being, info shared with us and it's not disseminated to the public.
Sure, we can certainly do that.
So how do we go about scheduling that? How
We
do
can
I-
get on a date. We're kind of pushing workshops in March, so it may be late March before we get there. Mr. White, I see noddings. Okay, I just saw nodding of the head, sorry. And I've got Ms. Whitley having the notes, so we'll just have to get a date that would work for all 5 and schedule.
Thank you.
Dr. McNeely?
Well, she took part of my thunder. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, I had an experience with Mr. Coward, and he's so kind. He talked to me and answered, or tried to answer, every single question. And I know we are not at action yet, but would not embarrass myself, but I feel that with everything that he shared with me today, because I called him about the addition of the roof for Santa Fe and Bishop. And then we kind of veered off into things for School I, for Idlewild, for Metcalf, and Bishop. And he eased my mind with the Bishop project. But as he told me so much stuff from the Department of Management Services, guaranteed maximum price, the architect that went to Orange County to review the 2 schools there, reuse of Meadowbrook, because that's what we are basically going to be doing for School I. When I hung up with Mr. Cowan, I thought, I'm dangerous now, because of the information that he was able to give me over the phone. But I quickly asked Mr. Cowan, is it possible, because I now know all of this, but my colleagues don't know it, when can we have a workshop? And I think it is imperative that we do, because too many rumors are out in the public right now. And in order to stop the rumors, then we have to talk about it and have the public to understand our process and the journey that we are going in. And technically, Mrs. Clark, the dates that he gave me lines up with what you said, but I said it was too long. And the reason I said it was too long is because, for instance, he shared with me about students and student locations. And you can't do that until you do this step and this step. Well, I think principals and other staff members on that leadership should be saying that to facilities right now, because you're not going to wait until 20, and then get into 21, and we still don't have a plan or a procedure for moving students and notifying parents and notifying everyone who would have to know these things. Student location is imperative, but all of these other things that he tried to share with me. And so after tonight, I need more help. And I think that Dr. Paulson will need that kind of help. I think Mr. Hyatt, I think Ms. Certain, I think Mrs. Roy. And so I too, whether it's the beginning of April or somewhere in March, we need to have it, especially when we are looking at architects and what they're suggesting. But I said, and I'm saying this to you now, Mrs. Clark, I said to Mr. Coward, what about School I and the new people that would be running that school? What will they have to say? And I think I was told that the principal of Meadowbrook would certainly be on the roster for consultation, and facilities people and curriculum people. But I really want to see, and I don't know when you will decide who will be overseeing that school, but I don't want people to come in like we have some principals now who were transferred, and the project list that was presented to us was under the other leadership. I would hate for that to happen with School I. So I'm just saying we need to have a workshop, maybe more than one, because this is the stuff he gave me today. I taught school, but I didn't work, I don't know anything about facilities and why you do what you do. So I suggest that we have this and not wait a long time to do that.
And we'll schedule this during spring break, is that right?
If you do, you're in trouble.
So,
That's the beginning of April.
Oh, that's right.
let me say,
That's right.
make a suggestion, and not that we're going to exactly solve it right now, but I think I'll discuss with the superintendent, and of course the key person here is Rose, tracking all of us down to get the date, or dates. But what also I'd like for board members to be thinking of, and if you have specific questions that facilities need to answer, that for our understanding and for the public's understanding, then rather than, bring them here and then ask some questions, let's have some questions in advance so that they could have visuals, they could have anything that's going to help the process. So I would say, first of all, I'm totally in support of having at least one workshop on this topic. And why don't, as we're trying to find a date that works for all 5 of us, let's, if we could have board members with specific questions, compile those, get those to Rose, and then we'll have a list that the facilities can work from. And if the list is too long, then we need to have more than one workshop.
I think you will.
Right.
Well, that's fine, we'll do it.
Chairman Hyatt, we had discussed with staff of doing, once we had the prioritized list established, as doing quarterly workshops with the board. We'd originally talked about monthly, but unfortunately, some things don't move as quickly that there would be a lot of new information in a monthly type format, of looking at potentially quarterly workshops with the board. That would give time for some updates on projects and where we were. The planning and the permitting and all that is not the exciting stage of that, but we would at least have some updates in a quarterly time period. So whenever we establish this one, then we can just start planning quarterly from there.
Right, and I'm really not sure how rumors get started, but I think we do a pretty good job explaining what we're doing, what we're planning to do, but we can always do better. So I guess it's time for board member superintendent announcements. Ms. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. I wanted to report that I attended the Canes on the Mic literary concert recently downtown. Canes of let me just read this. Canes on the Mic is a Gainesville High School youth literary arts and civic engagement organization. It is dedicated to the free and open creative expression of young minds. We tap into youthful energy to share their ideas with the world. We believe that the arts inform social justice. This is no judgment zone. So this was a very impressive performance downtown in the basement of the Hippodrome Theater during the recent, I forgot what it was called, but the arts celebration downtown. And this was a very, as Dr. McNeely knows, because she's been to some performances as I have, it's a very moving experience because these children, it's very deadly serious. And what Ms. Nicole Harris did, the director, the teacher that sponsors this organization, passed out handwritten notes from the students saying what this organization means to them. And I would just like to read a couple. This one says, how has the Canes on the Mic affected me? He said, suicide became an alternative. And the poems were just that serious. And, this club has allowed me to grow and really enjoy the gift of writing. And so I'm going to pass these around so people can see what the children think of this. And I owe this club my life. So, it's going to continue, I hear, but Miss Nicole Harris is not going to be. I know, I'm going to miss her so much. She's done so much for these kids. Okay, and the other thing I wanted to say is I went to the Free Speech Forum, and Mrs. Clark was the speaker, and she was excellent. I've had so many people come up to me after the meeting and since then and say how articulate and informative you were. And so I was really proud that you represented the district and the challenges that we face so well. And the other thing, most people, I know everyone on this dais, but maybe the public doesn't realize that the governor has unveiled a new voucher program. And this is, not going to be the corporate tax voucher system that we have is the biggest voucher program, but it's going to take money directly from public school funding. And so it really, really represents a threat to the survival of public school. It's another effort to, in my opinion, dismantle public education and replace it with for-profit private schools. And a very, very worrisome trend. Florida is leading the nation in this respect, and it's a danger because our country is great because of public schools and the opportunity that it gives all students. So another thing that reporting on Governor DeSantis, this actually came from Mr. Rella and was written up by Sue Legg, who is with the League of Women Voters Education Committee, which I serve on. And the governor has announced to great fanfare that he is increasing per student funding to $224 per student. However, this is only smoke and mirrors. The increase is simply shifting the teacher bonus money from the lottery to the general fund, which allocates the money to schools. Thus, it is not really any new money, so don't get excited about the budget increasing. Just rearranged money. Some funds for school safety and mental health are included. In our district expects to receive less money this year than than last year. And last year, our per pupil student funding was 47 cents per student, statewide average. Here's something else. The governor allocated $50 million for public school maintenance, all 4,000 of them. $50 million for 4,000 schools. The 654 charter schools are allocated $150 million, 3 times the cost, the money that public schools are getting with a fraction of the number of schools. Charters do not have to meet the same school facility standards as public schools. They find buildings to lease or buy. If they close, the charter keeps the buildings. It's nice of the state to give them the money to maintain these privately owned charter schools. All right, well, as Mr. Rella tells us, the governor's budget is not necessarily what's going to be, the final word. The legislative budgets are not out, and they will adjust the governor's priorities as they see fit. But the likelihood of any help for public schools is nil. The governor's call for vouchers paid for by the public treasury has to come out of public education. The scramble in the legislature for money will be interesting, and we need to let our legislators know what we think. Betty Castor has an article in today's, I think it's the Tampa Tribune, that Mrs. Legg has also written a blog post on that says basically the same thing. The public supports public schools, and the great majority of students in this state go to public schools. So public schools deserve to be treated well and fairly, not this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Dr. McNeely.
Thank you. We have so many wonderful academic students in our district, talented as well. And whenever I find or hear of a student, I will be recognizing you. So you can flood me and I'll have to choose. But I wanted to recognize a student tonight. and his name is Dashawn McGlon. And I think he's working somewhere, so he won't hear it. Maybe he's taping it. But I want to recognize him because he's a senior at Santa Fe High School. He is the student body senator. He's captain of his track team, and he's vice president of pre-collegiate, I guess, the organization. He has a weighted 4.7 GPA, and he's in the top 5% in his senior class. He's been accepted at this point 12 universities. He's hoping for more offers as well. I want to congratulate Dashawn McGlon for his phenomenal work that he's had all of the years at Santa Fe High, and certainly this year as a senior. Congratulations, Dashawn.
Thank you, Dr. Penieli. Any other comments? I just wanted to say, in addition to what Ms. Roy was talking about, we've had a lot of, in the press, we've just had a lot of problems reported with really an attack on teachers, a level of invective that keeps, that was at a rally in Texas last week, which is to the point it's really hard to believe. And I'll just say that I'm proud to have taught for 38 years. And if that makes me a loser, I'm proud to be a loser. And I think with the difficulties that our public schools have, our teachers and our school employees, I'd like to do everything that we can to mitigate those circumstances locally. And no, we can't do everything, but we can stand up and say we support our employees and we appreciate, and we have to be more than appreciate. We have to stand with our employees, and that's the teachers and the education service professionals. So I want to, even as the bad news and the attacks roll on, I guess the thing I really need to do is just turn off my television. But as they roll on, I want our employees to know that I stand behind you and stand with you, and I have no doubt that every person on this dais would say the same thing. So that was it. Okay, now we're on to citizen input. 15 minutes will be provided for citizens to address the board. And it is requested that citizens keep their comments to approximately 3 minutes. First up is Mr. Nicholas Klein from the Veterans Advisory Board.
At our meeting, I'm chair. My name is Nick Klein. I'm chair of the Alachua County Veterans Services Advisory Board. It was brought to our attention last Monday when we had our monthly meeting, the new 2019-2020 school calendar to come out. And again, Veterans Day is put as the #1 flex day. This year, the observance day, which was Monday, falls on the 12th, which is not actually Veterans Day. Next year, Monday, November the 11th, is the #1 flex day on the calendar for hurricane season. There's 2 issues that were brought up to our attention. We had a discussion about it. A motion was passed unanimously to address this board about it. The first issue being that #1, this is offensive to veterans. Many veterans serve on the school board. Many veterans teach in our schools. Many veterans have kids who go to Alachua County Public Schools. The second issue is going to be a logistical issue. The Alachua County Veteran Celebration is held at Veterans Memorial Park. The overflow parking has always been Kanavaha Middle School. Without that being a day off, especially on the 11th itself, it's going to be very hard to get that many people. I don't know if you've ever been to the Veterans Day celebration. It is enormous. We have paratroopers coming in, we have lots of logistics, lots of military trucks that come in, lots of people come in and drive, and parking is very, very tight, and that overflow parking is necessary. I was brought to my attention that this issue had been brought to this board's attention before, and they were promised that it would not happen again. That obviously has not happened, and this year, this coming year, it seems that this will be the first day that if there's a hurricane or anything that for some reason we need to close the schools down, Veterans Day is gonna be the first one to get an axe. The following week is Thanksgiving holiday, which there are 5 days off. Monday through Friday are all days off on the calendar, but Veterans Day is still the first flex day that is put on there. The second one is the first day of winter vacation. So we would like to address the board and suggest that you change this flex day, especially given that it is November 11th this year, and allow us to not have to worry about whether or not we have to change plans if there's a hurricane in late October. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Is this, Mr. Judkins? Thank you. From the Vietnam Veterans of America.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. I represent the Vietnam Veterans of America, and I also belong to most of the veterans organizations here in Alachua County. I've only been here 3.5 years. I have 2 grandchildren who attend the public schools here, and both of them are in the band in the middle school, and both of them have played at the Veterans Memorial Park during Veterans Day. Also, the veterans organizations are very active in this community. We go out to the schools, we do medals for ROTC. The Young Marines are at the Memorial Park, and we honor our veterans. And in this book right here, our chapter, the Vietnam Veterans of America, faces on the wall, we have the faces of the 48 veterans from Alachua County, most of whom attended Alachua schools, who died in Vietnam. And I think that not having the kids there to see these pictures on Veterans Day would really do a lot of harm to the veteran community and to our support of the schools, which we do a lot for. You know, the VFW does the Voice of America, and they go into schools. The Korean War Veterans has their project to the Finley schools, and just the thought that we wouldn't have the honor of the schools attending and learning about what we do is just a slam. So I think you should think about not having that. Maybe, you know, kick off UF off the, put them on that day.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And next is Virginia McCord.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. Actually, you are not the ones who allowed me to be here. A veteran allowed me to be here. See that flag? And that, and yet you don't choose to honor the veterans who made that possible. Why not? Why are you flying that flag? Who gave me the right to stand up here and maybe be a bit sassy? I think you do the veteran a disservice. They suffered for you. Some of them died. Some of them are still here, and they're still suffering. There's Agent Orange, there's physical disabilities, and we need our youth, who you so honored, to know about this. They're important, they're your history. We know that you celebrate Martin Luther King Day. He's an important historical figure and an inspiration. But what about the black soldier? What about the Tuskegee Flyers? What about the thousands of men, shades of brown, white, red, yellow, who gave their lives and their health? And some are still here and they're suffering, but you choose to sort of put it aside. Why not take the flag down if you're not going to honor it? Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Clark, would it be appropriate for me to make any response here? I should ask Mr. Delaney, because I know we normally do not respond.
The chair's prerogative.
Okay, well, I'll take the prerogative. So I would say, first of all, that I hope, I'm guessing that all three of you do, but I'm hoping that you attend some of the programs that we have at our schools. Because I think last year, I went to 3 on one day and another one on another day. And there is, even in this time of shrinking curriculum and high-stakes testing, it's a very important part of the school curriculum to teach about veterans and the importance of their service in the past and currently to the people of this nation. So I think we're doing this. I think probably what hurts me the most in the comments is the idea that anyone feels that they're slammed, because I don't think that was the intent of that decision. And I think I would invite any of you to contact me as chair, and let's talk about this further. I'm very easy to find on the website, and I don't know if we can, I don't know what the situation is. I can't promise anything, but I'd like to talk with the superintendent about it. But also, we have a committee, and that's from the school district and from our employees union, and so it's something that we'll have to talk about. And I do, first of all, thank everyone for your service. My mother was a wave in World War II, and she was very proud of that. And I do. You certainly, I think, have the best wishes and the respect of certainly of everyone here. So I want to look into this a little further. I'm not going to make any promises that I don't know I can keep, but we'll definitely look into it. And I do ask that you contact me. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now let me get back to my. Can I borrow this a second? Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to recognize the superintendent for the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recommend that the school board approve the consent agenda as described in items 1 through 11, with item number 12 being moved to action item number 4.
Do I have a
Mr.
motion?
Chair, I have a question.
We have to have a motion first.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, second by Dr. Paulson. Dr. McNeely.
Mr. Chair, when you were asking at the beginning with the approving the agenda for tonight, I missed something, so I'm going to just ask a question instead of having, because it's out of order now to ask for it to be put under action. And that is the request to add a new math course for the coming fall of the year.
I think Dr. McNeely, I think Mr. Delaney is going to chime in on this.
Okay.
Briefly, under our policies, the rules that the board sets up for itself, any board member who would like to pull an item from the consent agenda to the action item, they can do that.
I'm not, oh, even now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, then let's do it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Aren't we allowed to ask, to have request discussion of this and not be an action item too? I think I'm correct.
Sure. The distinction under the policies that the board has adopted for itself generally talks about making a brief comment or a question for the convenience of moving uncontroversial items on the consent agenda through. And if there's a more detailed discussion that's envisioned, that would be usually reserved for the action items.
Right.
So,
Just let me finish.
I'm sorry, sure.
That way we are avoiding unnecessary things that we can just handle if it's the discussion item, instead of putting it on the action, we just can.
I can't hear Dr.
We can
Paulson.
discuss it instead of putting it on an action item every time. And that's why, so if people just want to have a question about something, then it shouldn't automatically go to an action item. If you want to have an action item to have voted on, that's a whole different story. And I think we're just going straight to the action item is the way I was seeing it, it's not everything.
I agree what the rules talks about. If there's a brief comment, I think that would encompass a relatively straightforward question. Those are the items that, under the board's rules, stay on the consent agenda. I didn't want Dr. McNeely to have the wrong impression that she had somehow missed the opportunity to move something to the consent, to the action items if she wanted a more detailed discussion.
Or she can ask for discussion. And/or.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not, I don't even know what Dr. Mealy wants. She might want to have her vote. I'm just saying, I want to make it clear that we don't have to go straight to action items when we want to discuss something in the consent agenda. That's all.
Sure, and the only thing I would say to that is that the board's policies talk about commenting on something. I think under the spirit of the rules, if we're getting into a discussion or something that involves a lot of detail, that would naturally fall to the action items.
Okay, so let me go to Dr. McNeely and ask you, do you feel more comfortable asking a brief question, or do you feel like you need to pull the item?
I think I need to pull the item. I didn't think I had that privilege
Okay.
until the attorney said I did.
Okay, and so, and of course, that is a privilege of all board members. And so I didn't know about the timing, but it certainly makes sense to me. So, would you please tell me the number again, Dr.
It's
McNeely?
7.
7, so we will move what was consent agenda 7 will be moved to action item 5. Okay, now, so the motion, and I don't believe that we need another motion and second, do we? So all in favor of the consent agenda, with the exception of what was it? 7 and 12. So all in favor of items 1 through 6 and 8 through 11, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. First action item, we go to Assistant Superintendent White. Mr. White? Okay.
Superintendent recommends that the board accept the low base bid and award contract construction totaling $107,977 to Big D Roofing Services for California. Completion of this project shall be within 90 consecutive calendar days from the date indicated in the notice of receipt.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any discussion?
I have just a question.
Certainly.
I think a quick question here. The funding source is at the bottom of the page that we were given. Says 1.5 mil, so this is not sales tax money? That's a question I'm asking. Because I thought, I was understanding Superintendent Clark to say earlier that the projects that we were looking at were there, so that was just a question.
And did you want to comment on that?
Sure. So in the process of planning all of the projects, the facilities department took the projected sales tax amount and then also a projection of our 1.5 capital outlay, because roofs and all of that is part of the 5-year work plan. So there may be a case where, in this case, we're going to pay for the Santa Fe roof out of 1.5 mils. It could be that the next roof, a portion is paid out of the sales tax and a portion is paid out of the 1.5 mils. So there are two separate funding codes that they'll be used, so each project will be very clear, you know, that 52% is paid out of this and 48 out of something else. So when we say facilities update, the project list that's generated, some of that is going to be capital combined with sales tax money, or either or as part of the overall facilities plan. So that's why we've got it listed as a facilities update, not just tax update, but facilities also, because again, to the general public, unless you look at the funding code specifically, you know, do you really know which pot of money it's coming from? You just have to look at the funding code. So it'd be one or the other, capital outlay or the half set.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Back to Assistant Superintendent White.
Bid award project RFP number 3, District Middle School roof replacement concerning. Superintendent recommends that the school board accept the low-based bid and awarding contract for construction totaling $88,518. Completion of this project shall be within 90 days, 90 consecutive calendar days from the date indicated in the notice to proceed.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Dr. McNeely.
I know you have to go through a bidding process, but is it that we are going to Marion County for both services, or what's the deal with that? Do we not have any roofing companies locally, or we just think that this company is the exact group that we need to deal with?
Mr. Chair, we do go through a bidding process, and we take the lowest responsible bid. So we may get bids from Ocala or any other county. We normally take the lowest responsible bid. So that was just the case in these two bids, that they had the sharpest pencil, and we're getting the best cost for the taxpayers. So we can't preclude someone for bidding because they are outside of Alachua County.
I agree with you, Mr. White, except that, and if the pencil was so sharp and they gave the lowest bid, I hope the work is as good as the pencils that they used.
Yes, ma'am, and we'll make sure that.
Dr. Paulson.
Don't we have a point system? Or a bid system? Don't we have a point? We have, this is not, there's a variety of things. The only time I've been involved was back when they had the controversy on the 2 elementary schools.
Yeah, Mr.
And I
Chair,
thought there was a point system. And
I'm
I'm
sorry.
wrong, just tell me.
generally, we use point systems when we use requests for qualifications, and we're looking at it, and there's a point system associated with that. With our bid process, it is just that they're bidding on it. We review the bids, make sure it meets the specifications, and if they do that and they're, we don't have any past incidences which would raise a concern about their quality of work, we will generally go with the lowest bid.
Okay, all right.
Ms. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. I was looking at the backup material for the Bishop contract, and I see that this Big D is the only one that bid. Is that legitimate? I mean, do we go out for another bid when there's only one company? I mean, I see Perry Roofing, I guess, was going to contract or submit a bid, but didn't meet the 2 p.m. deadline. So I just wondered, there doesn't seem like there's, I mean, like Dr. McNeely, I hope that's a good company, but, you know, I think in the past, if there's just one bid, you might want to look again to see if anybody else, I mean, I don't know how it's done, but it seems logical that you would try to have some kind of competition.
Yes, ma'am, and we review that with purchasing, and frankly, given the state of some of our buildings, if we need to move ahead, we look at that, and in this case, we made a decision to move ahead so we could get the repairs made.
Okay.
Okay, I have a bunch of lights on. Does anybody mean to have their light on?
I was trying
No,
to
you're,
turn mine on.
no, you're good. You're good. Okay.
How's that?
Mr. Delaney, do you have it? Okay, thank you. Just didn't want to miss anybody. Any further discussion? Okay, we're on, all in favor of action item 2, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Some people are busy with
Action item 3, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have before you 3 new and amended job descriptions. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the allocation of funds and the proposed new job descriptions for buyer and amended job descriptions for Supervisor 2 Information Support and Coordinator Extended Day Enrichment Program as presented for advertising.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Anyone second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Ms. Surton. Any discussion?
I actually have one question. I'm looking for my item here. It wasn't one. I think on one of the question I had on one of the descriptions, let me get it here, where it looks like the IT job, it looks like the education was lowered. I think, I'm sorry.
Yes, it was taken from a master's degree required to a master's degree preferred.
Yeah, okay. And so the pay grade stayed the same, you know, we just lowered the education. I guess I was asking why. Was it just, you were thinking that the bachelor's degree would encompass the skill set needed for this position versus having to have an advanced degree?
Yeah, it's something that, you know, the field changes so rapidly, and what we described 10 years ago, you know, programmers versus analysts, and we get caught up in words. And so I think that, yes, that given the experience requirement that is still required, that somebody with a bachelor's degree would still be able to accomplish the tasks necessary for this position.
Thank you, Dr. Paulson.
It says new and amended job descriptions. Are we adding positions?
No, all 3 of these positions currently exist. Like the buyer one is just kind of mislabeled as an executive assistant, so we're giving it a more specific description unique to the office.
Okay, there's still, no more, no, we're not adding positions.
No,
All right.
there will not be an executive assistant doing this role. It will be the new buyer position.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, all in favor of action item 3, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now, action item 4, which was formerly known as consent agenda number 12, Assistant Superintendent Purvis.
Mr. Board Chair, the superintendent recommends to the board that the DES, I'm ad-libbing here, the DES contracts for the following 3 employees are recommended for drop extension.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second, I'll second.
A motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Ms. Surton.
I wanted to ask, what was the justification for extending the drop time for the 3 positions, since they're non-instructional? I mean, an executive assistant, it looks like a physical plant, one position, what was the other one? Vehicle service specialist. So I wanted to know what was the justification after 60 months of drop, that we don't have a suitable applicant that we could fill a position for?
Yeah, so past practice is, Board Chair and board members, is that directors, principals, supervisors can recommend an employee for the DES contract for a year, since they have to sit out for the year. And for these 3 employees, that was recommended to us in writing from their supervisor. Mr. Buchanan is a mechanic in transportation. Mr. McEwen is a plant mechanic at a school, and obviously Ms. Bridwell is an executive assistant at a school.
So I guess I had a couple questions if I could, or you want me to wait?
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, okay. So I guess, so if you finish your 60 months of drop and you're just rewarded by extension of your contract if you're not ready to leave, this happens with any employee? I mean, you don't have to justify keeping the person in the position versus, because when you enter drop, it's my understanding, the purpose of drop was to allow for the agency to keep the employee on, they're gonna retire, and you got a date certain that they're gonna leave, and it allows you to groom someone in-house or the position to be advertised out to be filled. So I guess I was not expecting to see an executive assistant on a list for a contract extension when you had 60 months. She's going in the drop and we got a date certain date. So I'm trying to figure out the justification. You said past practices that an employee could be recommended to extend. I mean, they're doing work for the pay, but I'm just trying to figure out why the position wouldn't be freed up for another in-house candidate or an external candidate to apply for it after 60 months of drop.
Yes, ma'am. And again, I go back to, it was recommended by the supervisor and/or in this case, as you're asking, the executive assistant, by the principal. And so we honor those recommendations for the DES contract for them.
I guess I'm still just a little perplexed as to why the person wouldn't go ahead and retire after the 60 months. When you sign the forms, that's what you're going to, why you're staying on staff. I don't get that. That's what I don't get. And I'm wondering if, if there's not a replacement, if the justification for it, if that's a past practice, that we're keeping somebody on because we don't feel we can fill that position, if that's the justification, or if we're just rewarding somebody because we want to keep them there and they can keep getting a paycheck and not get penalized for the FRS. It just seems like you're gaming the system to me. That's how I feel about it.
Dr. Paulson.
Well, and this has been a question we went in depth a few years ago. 2 questions. These people have to sit out a year, right? Right, so these people have sat out a year.
No.
No, they have not.
From
They would be.
that's why DES.
Yes, sir,
Excuse me, I'm
DES,
That's why
yes, sir.
DES.
Yeah, I got it. But the
Yes,
other
sir.
thing is, they're at the midpoint, right? The salary schedule? Because that's what we.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So,
Right, Mr. Chair, if I may, to clarify, when folks come back on a DES or even after that, they would come back at midpoint on their appropriate salary schedule, whatever that is.
Right.
So if it's a 28-point salary schedule, they come back on step 14. If it's a 30-point salary schedule, they come back on 15. So they do come back to the midpoint. There are some districts that take them back to 0, as if they have no experience. Some maintain them at their current level of pay,
Not
whatever that
many.
is. Not many. Most would go back to
We
0.
did.
But what's interesting is some districts, if they go to 0, they could go to another district who offers this and make more
Yeah.
money. So you're losing people that you've groomed within your own county to do that. So there is that piece. So they're not paid at the same rate when they come back.
well, let me clear some of this up. Okay, you're at midpoint, all right? And they keep you the next year. What happens then? Do they stay at the midpoint, or are they going up a scale, on the salary schedule?
They step as any other employee, so that would be their new placement on the salary schedule, whatever that midpoint step is, and then they would continue to step at that point. They don't just hold at midpoint.
All right.
So I have the question of if you're an employee and you've decided to retire by saying you're gonna enter into drop, I'm trying to figure out why you're staying on staff and why we're even giving you another 1-year extension so you don't sit out. I don't get that. I don't understand why the position isn't vacated. I understand we have it. I wouldn't even be questioning this if this was an instructional position, because I know, I've heard from you and I've heard from Ms. Finley, the challenges that we're facing in recruiting instructional staff. This seems like we're gaming the system, and as a board member, I can't approve that. An executive assistant, we've got plenty of people around here with that skill set. Now, you've told me how valuable Uma is, am I pronouncing his name correctly, in IT is? You've told me how valuable his skill set is. He's been here for a long time, and it's hard to recruit IT employees. If he was on this list, I wouldn't be questioning this. But when I see an executive assistant, and we had 60 months, she's on this form that we got that has employee action, So we got this here, she signed up, she's at the end of drop. I don't understand why anybody did 60 months, they did the full drop, why we're on a DES contract for them. I disagree with that.
Ms. Roy?
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. If I may just say that, as a longtime board member, we have dealt with this issue, and I felt the same way that Ms. Certain does, that it's not fair to keep someone on. And, you know, we went all through this, how it is really beneficial to the district to keep someone. I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. But this was a decision by the board years ago. Initially, it only applied, DES only applied to administrators. Now it applies to teachers and professional technical people and also ESPs. And
But not bus drivers, because I called Mr. Purvis today, and they are not eligible because of the liability of insurance.
Oh, okay. I didn't quite know that, but anyway, I felt the exact same way you did. But the board decided at the time that it was more beneficial to the district to keep, and some of these positions are difficult, as you say, to replace. Not particularly what is Ms. Bridwell?
An executive assistant.
Executive assistant, but, you know, her work must be stellar in order to have recommended her to continue.
I guess I warn, and I just caution board members, my colleagues, of us doing things because of what previous boards have done without questioning things. To me, with the drop program, I'm kind of familiar being a retiree from the city of Gainesville and understanding how that went. And how taxpayers are being kind of, you know, we're kind of on the hook for that. And I think it prevents your other employees that are in the organization that may have aspirations of advancing their career, or even other new employees. When you decide to go into the drop program, it's better for you financially to look at your position and to know if you can't walk out the door in 5 years and you're not ready to walk out in 5 years, don't. I don't think these are critical positions that need to be filled, that we would have a hard time filling those positions. I think, so that's how I see it. And I understand what you're saying about what the position of the past board took. That's one of the reasons why I decided to run, because I didn't like all the decisions that past board members made, so.
Dr. Paulson?
The previous board went through this and had the exact same concerns you have. So let's get that straight. This, and I can see your point on the executive assistant. I don't know, it's a shame that her name's out here and we're doing it here out there, the position we're in. We have had, I think when we first had it, we had principals that we made an exception for, right?
Yes, I believe that was the case, district administrators and principals.
And you've got good points, Ms. Certain, about, but I don't know Ms. Bidwell, and it's unfair for her to be put out here like this right now. And we went through this, in fact, I ran on the second time I ran, on one of the things about saving $1 million if we'd put people at the midpoint and stopped it after they got done. But right now, I don't know, the vehicle service specialists might be more important than you think they are. And they're not just running around, easy to get. And the physical plant mechanic maybe too. And I don't know what Mrs. Bidwell's position is. It's a shame she's here. I don't know how I'm gonna vote in a minute, Ms. Certain. I see your point, but I just want you to understand, this point was brought up 4 years ago. And we put in special rules. Those rules, because of the reason we were losing administrators and teachers, this is why we've looked at this. So, your point's well taken. It's not quite correct about the previous board, though. That's all I got to say. We'll see how we all vote.
Any further discussion?
I will. I don't have my light on. I did call Assistant Superintendent of Personnel today. I don't know any of the three, and it's good that I don't, because we're talking about continued livelihood for them, possibly. But in talking with Mr. Purvis today, he shared with me about, well, really, the whole thing, all three. But we kind of emphasize the vehicle service specialists, and that they don't just come around. It's hard to find them and to work for our low pay for what we require of them. That's another thing. And I think the physical plant mechanic is one of the persons over at Civia. Is that, am I mixing them up?
Be located at a school.
Oh. But not the vehicle service?
No, ma'am. Vehicle service specialist is a mechanic at the transportation department. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And as many buses that we have down, and the few guys or women that are mechanics, are specialists, we probably, and I would hate to split hairs with this, to say that person is more valuable than the other two. I just couldn't do it. So that would be the reason that I would have to support it, based on what the assistant superintendent said to me today.
Ms. Certain.
My question is to management, to the assistant superintendent of HR and any other manager that's in here that would recommend the employee, what is the plan after 1 year? Is there a succession plan put in place so that if the vehicle service attendant, they're not in, or vehicle service specialist and the maintenance mechanic, if these are employees that are hard to recruit, we have other staff on hand, is there not anyone else in the pool that's worth grooming and we can invest and train so that they can build their career? What's the plan? So next year, are you gonna come back and this will be on an agenda item again to extend them for another year? We've had 60 months to plan for an employee to leave our organization. 60 months. And if we didn't do that as an organization, that's shame on us. We should be, I'm getting ready to leave my job and I'm training someone now doing a transition process. We had 60 months as an organization to do that. So I guess my question is, if these employees, we're saying we want to do that, what are we going to do with 12 months down the line? We're going to still have buses that need to be maintained and serviced. We're gonna have AC units and whatever the facilities maintenance person does, whatever his job. And I'm not minimizing any of these positions. I just wanna know what the plan is as an organization and as taxpayers. We've allowed them to work. They went into a deferred retirement option plan where they've accumulated a nice little nest egg. So they're not walking out of the door empty-handed and they won't be destitute. What is our plan as an organization to free up a position so that someone can advance their career into another position, or someone from external can be hired in and have a new job? That's all I'm asking. I mean, I understand the scarcity of labor. I understand those concepts, but what's our plan to go forward?
Thank you, Ms. Certain.
Did she think, can I ask Ms. Certain a question?
Well, that seems to be the way we're doing it tonight.
Oh,
So I would guess you can.
Thank you so much. Ms. Certain, did you just state that they'll come back in 12 months? I don't think that's the case. Did you say that, or did I think you so?
Well, I was like, okay, this, on here it says 319, which is where we are, to 329.
But they don't come back, they come back to the district, I thought. They don't ask for this again.
Right,
That's what I heard.
No.
Superintendent?
Can I defer to Assistant Superintendent
Certainly.
Purvis, please, and I'll let him answer.
that is correct. So they're in DES for 1
1
year.
year.
And then they would come back to the district at the midpoint.
Right.
Correct.
They
Okay.
could come back.
Could come back, yes.
That's the way
That's correct.
Okay,
They could be hired.
because I came through it.
Okay.
But did that answer Ms. Certain's question?
That gives me even more pause.
Okay. Well,
But okay, let's go.
you know, I think that we have, you know, I went through DROP. It was a lot better program back then than it is now. When I signed those papers, I knew that means I'm retiring now and I've got 5 more years. So I understand the concept. And we, as Dr. Paulson said, we have been through this before, and I think it's a situation where, as Mr. Purvis has described, that these are a handful of folks that the supervisor is recommending that they stay. I don't think it's out of control. I think Dr. Paulson's idea from 4 or 5 years ago to move things to the midpoint, as he has pointed out, saves the district an incredible large amount of money. And I know that both Dr. McNeely and Superintendent Clark are the two people on the, and Mr. Purvis on the dais, and Ms. Jones, I don't want to miss anybody, the people that are principals know the incredible value of that executive assistant. So that being said, I certainly don't mind. It's not up to me to mind anything, but I think if we want to look into the concerns that I thought were very clearly stated by Ms. Zerden, then that's something we can look to, but I would like to do that in the context of availability and what is in the best interest financially, not only financially of the district, but also in the district running smoothly. Superintendent Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. If I may, if the board would be interested, following the vote this evening, because as I look at this, you've got one of these folks that's, they're scheduled March 1st. So basically in 11 days, this is a decision based on their livelihood. And of course, in their mind, they're thinking, this has been going on, I should get this. And so they may have not planned for that. And I understand there's a nest egg, but there's also the health insurance component that I think is a big part of this. So following the vote this evening, whichever way that vote goes, is, dare I say, schedule a workshop to talk about this, kind of where we go, what the board's thoughts are on that moving forward, because I think whatever we decide to do, or what the board decides to do, we've got to make sure it's very clear to our employees, because we don't want them to be surprised, because yes, they've had their 5 years that they've signed their paper, but based on past practice for 10, 12 years, or whatever the start of this was back in the mid-2000s, the expectation has been, I'm going to continue. So if we're going to cut that off, I just want to make sure that we make that very clear to our employees, or if we're going to change the methodology for justification, we can certainly do that as well too, whatever the board decides. But we could certainly schedule that as a workshop if you'd like.
So what I'd like to ask is if the Assistant Superintendent Purvis, if you could, and your you and your department could maybe capsulize what our policy is, what our practice is currently, what our practice has been the last few years, and then we'll be asking Rose to find another date for a workshop where we specifically talk about this, and obviously a noticed workshop. And I think these are very valuable questions and very important things to resolve. So
I have one more question before I vote, Mr. Purvis. So we have this DES contract for 1 year. And since they sat out the 1 year, and they won't be penalized by FRS if they come back and work. So then the position is posted again, and then they get hired for the position?
It's not what they interview.
They would apply and could potentially be hired.
Oh, boy, I'd like to see the stats on that one. I'd like to see the stats on that one. That would be, okay. Thank you.
I would just say, I would take exception to the term gaming the system, but that's me. So, do I have any?
Just one more question.
Certainly.
We still have extended drop for teachers, right?
Yes, sir, we do.
Well, we don't have that for anybody else.
No, sir.
All right. So,
Critical.
well, I think it's a good point. You got one group that, I was a teacher. I didn't get to do the extended, but they can go 8 years, these people can't. So, I mean, I think we need to have a good discussion
Yes,
and and be clear.
We'll do
But I
that.
just think there's a lot more to this than just, it's not black and white.
You had 60 months to address it, though. That's
I'm
all.
not disagreeing with you. And these
right.
points have been brought up.
yeah, I think we're going to address it. Okay. We actually have a motion and a second, and so we're looking at action item 4, which, the former 12. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. In favor, Dr. McNeely, Ms. Roy, Dr. Paulson, the chair, Board Member Surton voted negative, voted no. Okay, thank you. Now, action item 5 goes back to number 7, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Wise.
Thank you so much. Board Chair Hyatt, Superintendent, board members. I'm here this evening seeking approval to add a new high school course, Discrete Math Honors, beginning with the 2019-20 school year. This new course has to first be re-established by the Florida Department of Education, and part of the approval process is to receive initial support from you. Once this course is approved by DOE, this course would be available for all of our schools.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. Paulson. Discussion. Dr. McNeely.
Thank you. Mrs. Wise?
Yes, ma'am.
I have several things to ask, and so I'm going to give them to you now, and
Okay.
then you can pick which ones you can answer, and the ones you can't, we'll
Okay.
get later, I'm
If
sure.
it's about the real math, those I'll probably have to phone a friend, but,
That's all right.
okay.
First question, what is this course replacing? Second question, will this course be available to all high schools? Third question, any prerequisites to taking this course? Next question, will all schools have teachers to teach this by fall of 2019? And next question, teachers being able to teach these new courses, how are you planning to incorporate that? Are you doing that this summer? And how can the board support it if we don't know? I read all of the things that you put together, but that doesn't help me because I'm not a mathematician.
Right.
So how do I know how to vote? And you're needing the support of this board, and I'm not willing to say, of course, because Mrs. Wise put it out there.
Randy,
I need to know something more.
Okay, well, I think I can answer a lot of these. It's not replacing anything, it's adding a top-level course to the sequence. So I'm gonna jump down to the prerequisites, which was your third question, and it would be for students who had completed both of the calculus courses, A, B, and B, C. So it would come after that. Currently, we only have a handful of students, and most of them have to take this course at UF. So then they take it through dual enrollment. This is an old course that's been out of commission, if you will, for a while, probably because the demand got very small, and now a small demand is building back up for it.
So we would have a lot of students who would be wanting this class?
I don't have a feel for how many. I don't think it's a tremendous number of students who exhaust all of the math courses that we currently offer. That's not a lot of students. It would be available to all high schools, but you make some good points in terms of would we be able to find teachers for these courses? And that's a challenging question for all of our math courses, but probably more challenging for the upper math. And I would have to defer to Mr. Purvis. I don't know how easy it is to find a calculus teacher, so then I don't know. I think teachers who teach calculus can teach this course. So if we have calculus teachers in all of our schools, then we should have teachers already who can teach this course.
You should have,
We should have.
and that they would want to do that.
And if there were enough students that a school could use the allocation of a class period for it.
So let's take, for example, if we could offer it at Buchholz,
Right,
but we may not be able to offer it at Santa Fe.
right.
Because, so are we going to make arrangements for those students to be able, or you haven't gotten that far?
We haven't gotten that far. I don't know if this is something that we would be able to collaborate with our e-school on in order to make it available in more places. I mean, something this hard, I would probably be the kind of learner that needed to be face-to-face with a teacher. So, no, we haven't gotten that far yet in the planning.
So because it's on consent tonight, and if I guess I hadn't had a question, we would have, it's already passed.
No, it
No?
hasn't, the DOE hasn't given us approval for it yet.
Okay,
We have to send in the rationale, we have to send in what the standards of the course would be, and we have to draw from standards that exist in existing courses and then pair it with, I think there's some computer science applications that are tied with the math applications in this course. And so there's a blending of that to make this course. And so the DOE hasn't even approved that what the people working on this course, Mr. Frazier and a math teacher at Buchholz, the DOE has not yet given us even an indication as to whether the course that they're designing, modeled after this old mothballed course, is one they would approve, but they won't approve it if you guys don't support it. So this is just one of the things we have to do to put together a packet to show them this is a course we would like to offer.
Superintendent Clark.
One thing also that's important to note, currently there is a discrete math course that is only available for IB students. So there is an IB discrete math. So there is a discrete math course that exists, but right now the only students who can take that are IB students. So by offering a regular discrete math course, for lack of a better
Honors,
word,
right.
an honors course, but it would not be married solo to the IB program, so I would assume it would be very similar in standards and
scope and
nature and the
sequence
scope and
of it.
sequence of the course. But this would open that up. Now, when we look at this, when she says exhaust all math courses, this generally is for students this would be a student who would complete the second AP calculus course as a junior.
Right.
So you're looking at a student who maybe took some extra math courses along the way. I mean, this is like way above what probably any of us took in a math
Yes.
progression. So that was part of this, was the rationale, is that schools that wanted to keep their students at school, you know, if math is their track, and we don't offer that class, then they have to go elsewhere to take it if they're going to take a math course their senior year. So it would be Santa Fe, or in this case, UF, for the discrete math. So by offering this course, we would be able to put it at other schools besides Eastside, but then also retain students within our schools rather than sending them for one class period or one math period in a dual enrollment situation. Now, some of them may still want to dual enroll, and that's okay. I mean, we would not certainly stop that, but this would give them the opportunity to take it on our campus. Now, if there was only one student at a school who wanted to take the course, obviously, we could not support a teacher for that, and we would have them dual enroll. But in a situation where we could get kids to support a teacher unit allocation there, then that would be something we could offer.
Ms. Roy.
I also talked to Ms. Weiss before the meeting about this. And as I understand it, if we're able to get it approved by the state and offer it, we will capture the FTE rather than giving it to,
UF.
UF.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's an advantage.
Dr. Paulson.
Yeah, it's the same thing when I called today to find out about it. That's why I asked whether we could discuss something like this instead of, that way you could vote on it with this consent agenda. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see how we get funded too, the way you're talking. Because if you full e-school, you get $5,800. If you add students in a seat, you get over $7,000. So that would be interesting. And it'd be interesting to see how many kids you have for it too. And I think it's good questions like the ones being brought up. What do you do for these high schools that can't offer it? These kids are able to go to Buell's, Gainesville High, whatever. So, it's, because we do lose a lot of money with dual enrollment. If people as old as I am, 20 years ago, we lost about $1.5 million a year with the dual enrollment. You remember that? Well, you probably, you're
Yes,
too
it's,
young.
it's
Mrs.
more than
Clark.
that now.
You're just a youngster, you don't remember that.
I remember.
But
it's-
anyway, so, it's, that was my question, so when I was trying to get a hold of you guys today, and you got with me before the meeting, before I got with Johnny Cash.
Right.
That's a joke between, well, I'll tell you later. But anyway, yeah, it's been worthwhile seeing what happens. I'm not one for adding positions, that's why I ask for a staffing report every month, because we need to look at how many staff we have. But, this is one, we can do this, get the kids back in, but we gotta have to get 7, 8, 9, 10 kids to justify the position, aren't we? Something like that? Yeah, okay, all right.
Do I need to ask you questions privately, call you, or you have other answers for me?
The only thing I think I didn't touch on, you asked me what it's replacing. Is it available to all high schools? What are the prereqs? What about teachers? And then I wasn't quite sure I got the fifth one right. You said, what are we doing to work to help the teachers get ready?
Well,
is
you
that-
just said
did I
if they
catch it?
teach calculus, then.
I mean, like, for
so
me,
that-
it's just all
that-
Greek. I mean, I just have to be honest, I'm not a math kind of gal. But I think people who speak this math language, who speak calculus, speak discrete math, is my understanding of it.
Okay.
But it'd be interesting to see how we're funded too. Make that one here. How we,
For
when we
the E
divide,
versus
how are we
the-
gonna design this and how are we gonna be funded? Because there are different fundings.
Okay.
And you say some of it's gonna be online, et cetera.
Well, I don't,
Some of it could be. We don't know yet.
we don't know that yet.
I got you. But
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're giving the go-ahead for the course. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but we're giving the go-ahead.
You're showing initial support
Yes.
for us requesting the course to be put back in the course code directory. I mean, it would be not just for us, it
Right.
would put it back in the Florida course code directory.
And then we'll go back to Greek, and so we can.
Yeah, then that's the next thing we'll work on. Yeah.
So,
Right, this would be statewide. So
Statewide.
Alachua County, by us doing this, it would be accessible to all
Yeah.
67 counties.
I'll go.
That's
to
why they want the board
athletic
approval.
director to find out.
Okay.
So, Ms. Wise, I wonder how this even came about, and the reason I'm asking this has nothing to do with your position here.
Yes.
But we've had the African Task Force, African American Task Force, asking for the same thing, and we put the course at Eastside. But it doesn't look like it's gotten any traction.
Well, it's at Lofton this year too, and it's online for all the high schools. And Dr. Rame is working with the two teachers, the Lofton teacher and the Eastside teacher, on developing a scope and sequence for the course so that he can pitch this new elective course to more schools. I think teachers knowing they could begin teaching a course where there's already the curriculum support of a scope and sequence are more likely to add it to the mix. I think Santa Fe High School is looking at it. Again, it's like the discrete math. It's a balancing act of your allocation, the course electives that you already have. Like if someone retires or moves on and you close an elective, what are some new electives you can open up? And certainly interest and demand is there. So we want to be able to support the teachers with the right curriculum materials so that they can teach the course.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Ms. Clark?
Oh,
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Dr. Paulson?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of action item 5, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes
Thank you.
5-0. Okay, we're back to our citizen input. I don't have any more forms turned in. I don't see anyone approaching the podium, or the rostrum, excuse me. And so I guess we'll go ahead to board member superintendent request. Ms. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. You know, I just wanted to share an article that I read in the New York Times the other day, because I think it's relevant to our students. The title was "The 2 Codes Your Kids Need to Know." And it went on to say, of all the skills and knowledge that we test young people for, that we know are correlated with success in college and in life, which are the most important? And the answer is the ability to master 2 codes, computer science and the U.S. Constitution. For the Constitution, it says that the Constitution forms the foundational code that gives shape to America and defines our essential liberties, indispensable guide to our lives as productive citizens. And then as far as the coding and the computer skills, if you want to be an empowered citizen in our democracy, whether an adaptive worker, an artist or a writer, or a scientist or a teacher, if you want to shape the world around you and not just be shaped by it, you need to know how computers work and how to shape them. So I think our district does a good job in both of these areas, but just to keep that in mind as very, very important aspects of our curriculum. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Any other,
Fake news.
board member superintendent requests? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned.